Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I'm your host, Omer Khalid. But as you know, the format of our show is talking to heads of agencies, different ambassadors, different directors of organizations who are working in Pakistan to forge and build the relationship between their organizations, their countries, and Pakistan. Today is no exception. We've got a person who represents a development agency that has been working in Pakistan since 1961. The country is the United States of America that has been in relationship with Pakistan, and Pakistan has been an ally of that country since a very, very long time. The United States Agency for International Development opened its offices way back in 1961, and since then has invested in different projects in Pakistan to strengthen Pakistan's economy. With me is the mission director of that very agency, Mr. Jerry Bisson, a person who has been associated with that agency since the last 30 years and is in Pakistan since the last 9 months. Mr. Bisson, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mr. Bisson, we, as is the format of our show, always begin by talking about the person. So, 30 years, Mr. Bisson, of working in countries such as Afghanistan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Eurasia, a very vast experience. You've been the world over, a globe-trotter, if I might say. How has it been searching the world for development projects and working for developing those countries?
Well, obviously, I've enjoyed it because it's been what I've done for 30 years. And I began my career as a Peace Corps volunteer, and I served in the Philippines where I was helping farmers grow hybrid mango trees integrated with high-value vegetables like tomatoes. And working with farmers really inspired me to pursue a career in international development. And my background is forestry, agriculture, so I've been very interested in the work that we do around the world in helping farmers increase their yields and have a better life.
All right. In the United States, how much of the whole country is based on agriculture as well? Because your interest in agriculture, as you've recently pointed out in the show, does it point out to a familial background from agriculture, or does it your personal interest?
It's both a family. I grew up on a farm in northern Vermont, New England. But in America, if you look at the agricultural sector, it's become very large with very large corporations farming. That produces most of the agriculture output. Although more and more you're seeing in America smaller farms being organic, producing niche, high-quality food. And so there are opportunities to produce high-quality food around the world.
All right, great. So coming to Pakistan, we are an agricultural-based country, and one of the projects that you work on is also to boost the productivity and to develop new forms of crops in the agriculture sector in Pakistan. Could you cite a few examples, and what has been the success rate as far as cooperation in that sector is concerned?
Sure. Why we work in the agricultural sector first, 40% of the employment in Pakistan, the workforce, is engaged in agriculture. However, the yields are relatively low compared to other countries in the region. So as you mentioned, USAID works to increase agricultural productivity by introducing new varieties. And we've been able to introduce about 20 plus varieties of wheat, particularly those varieties resistant to disease. We've also helped develop new crops like quinoa, the citrus. And just recently, in the past year, Indonesia received 13,000 tons of quinoa, citrus from Pakistan, and that was valued at $14 million. So it's a huge success for Indonesia to be able to export some of their crops.
How do you help the farmers in improving their crops? For example, there's a lot of issue with the different diseases that the crops can attain for one reason or the other. How do you help farmers attain the need to protect their crops, and how to protect them?
Well, we worked both in the field with farmers understanding the issues, but most importantly, we work with the government of Pakistan, particularly at the provincial level, in helping them build the capacity to identify, detect, and address diseases and pests. And we've been working in diseases in crops such as cotton, wheat, mangoes, tomatoes. And another area that we focus on is livestock. As you know, this is a very important area for the rural economy. And again, helping the government of Pakistan identify and address diseases in cattle, sheep, and goats. And one success story there is that now In Pakistan, you locally produce the vaccines that are needed to protect these livestock.
All right, so that's interesting because vaccines produced locally, of course, cost less than any vaccine that is imported, and it's very important for farmers who are not that rich to attain drugs or pesticides at rates that are affordable to them.
Correct.
Speaking of Pakistan, you've been here for not that long, if I'm not wrong, around 9 months or so. How has that time period been for you?
It flew by. I've been here 9 months. I'll be here for at least two and a half years. I love it being in Pakistan. I've had a chance to travel a fair amount. I've been to Karachi twice, Lahore, other places in Punjab, Peshawar, and Gilgit. And in many of these places, I've been so inspired by the people I've met.
All right. Supporting a vision is very important. In Pakistan, we are focused on development in different sectors. How does the USAID help Pakistan in development in all those sectors and strengthen Pakistan's economy?
One way to look at it is USAID does not do activities alone. We always work in partnership. We work in partnership with the government of Pakistan, private sector, civil society, and in general, our focus is how do we strengthen a system? And I'll give an example in the health sector. In the health sector, we focus on saving the lives of women and children. And one of the greatest challenges there is babies die, and how can we help them survive? And we've helped work with the government to produce locally again a low-cost antibiotic ointment that is used to put on the umbilical cord to help the baby stay alive. And we estimate that we've been able to save 144,000 babies each year. Now, this is not a direct action of USAID, but it's part of what the government is doing, and we help the government put in place that system.
You were talking about how you met the Sindh governor very recently. You're also working along with the Sindh government in the Sindh Basic Education Program. How much of a success rate have you gotten through that?
Well, if the Sindh government, and actually Pakistan government, Punjab as well, have gotten international recognition for their innovative approach to contracting with the private sector to run schools. And USAID's been doing this in Sindh, where we build the schools, but the government of Sindh realizes they don't have the staff to run the schools, so they contract with the private sector. And what we focused on is helping to teach children in grades 1 and 2 to read. And why is that important? Because in Pakistan, we want to help the students perform better. And our theory is if they can read better in grades 1 and 2, there's a better chance they will perform better and stay in school longer. Because in Pakistan, 6.7 million children from the ages of 5 to 9 are out of school. And this is the second highest number of students out of school in the world. So this is a serious opportunity for the Pakistan government to really improve education to help students succeed.
All right. Education is one of the sectors in which the USAID is working with different sectors in Pakistan, with the government of Pakistan, with the other provincial governments and other donors as well. Now, when it comes to education, education is not just limited to those youngsters who cannot get education. There are a lot of youngsters who do get education, but they want to further educate themselves in different fields. How does the USAID help them in getting scholarships to go abroad or to get the necessary education in the expertise or the field that they want?
I totally agree with you. It's important that you help the education system both at the basic level and at the higher education, as well as workforce development. So higher education, we fund 2 types of scholarships. We fund a scholarship based on merit and need. And these are scholarships where we do a very intensive evaluation to identify those students who are well qualified, but they lack the financial resources. And we've been able to fund scholarships for 18,800 students at 30 universities here in Pakistan. And I've had a chance to meet many of these scholars, and I've been very impressed with their enthusiasm and what they want to do with their lives and how they want to improve the future for Pakistan. For going abroad, we have a program called the Fulbright Scholarship. You're familiar with that? In which case, we funded 5,000 plus scholarships to the US for both masters and PhDs. And these, again, these scholarships are life-changing. When people go abroad like that, they have a chance to experience a different culture. They come back with new ideas, new approaches, and new skills.
All right. New skills brings me to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is also something that is very important for any country, and especially for countries such as Pakistan, so that the people, the youngsters of our country can stand on their own 2 feet, and even if they don't have a job, they can start their own business. How does the USAID help in that?
Well, when we look at the job sector, Pakistan has a growing economy now of 207 million people. 60% of the economy, 60% of the population is under the age of 30, with between 3 and 4 million people joining the workforce every year. So it's a real challenge to create the jobs. So our analysis indicates that micro, small, and medium enterprises, those are the areas that are likely to grow and create jobs. So we have focused on making financing available. We have $60 million set aside through 4 banks, and they are loaning out. They've already made 11,000 loans, and what we're finding is that there's a very high repayment loan. And so the banks are saying, look, these are small loans, but we're getting a high repayment. So you're seeing more of the banks allocating their own capital for loans to these small, micro, small, and medium enterprises. And then we also provide support for how do you build the entrepreneurship of a business, how do you support them with mentoring. We've set up some nationwide mentoring programs, particularly for women entrepreneurs.
Speaking of women entrepreneurs, let's go towards women. Gender equality is something that our government firmly believes in, and this is also something that the USAID believes in and works towards fighting injustice as far as women are concerned in the society. How does the USAID with local partners help in empowering women of Pakistan?
I understand your point, and I fully support it. Any country needs to have all its people participate. Both men and women have to have equal access to education and employment opportunities. USAID funds girls' school, because it begins with girls' education. And that means you have to have female teachers, you need to have dormitories. So a lot of the facilities are required for families to allow their girls to go to a school. And then we also support scholarships just for girls. We've funded 6,000 scholarships for girls at universities here in Pakistan. And we support entrepreneurship through a variety of ways. As I mentioned, we have some programs that provide mentoring just for women entrepreneurs. And in some of our vocational education programs, we focus on skills that women can use in their homes, like sewing and embroidery. And we've also done some innovative work where women have graduated as doctors here in Pakistan. But once they got married, the husbands felt that they should stay at home. But they're a doctor. So we've been working on telemedicine, where these women doctors can practice their medicine from home and actually really benefit rural communities who need that medical expertise.
All right. Also, you talk about the women who want to become doctors and then they can work from their homes, but there are also specialists who want to do research in different fields, for example, not just be specialized, but continue working once they finish their education. The USAID, does it help in funding researchers for these people or giving them centers where they could continue researching in different sectors that they want to?
Well, we have funded the universities across the country in different ways. I mean, we helped create the Institute for Business Administration, the Lahore University of Management Sciences, but mostly we've been focusing on how to help teachers get trained. And so we constructed what we call faculties education. These are state-of-the-art buildings with classrooms, laboratories, research facilities, and we've constructed them at 17 universities. So they're really geared to help Pakistani's educational system produce high-quality teachers. And we developed curriculums for teacher training that are now being used by over 100 universities.
You've told me that you visited quite a lot of places in Pakistan. How have you found Pakistan's culture?
Very welcoming. It's the warm welcome that I have received in Pakistan has really been touching. I've enjoyed the opportunity to meet with Pakistanis, some of the partners we have. Like I say, one of the experiences that I find most moving is when you go out and you meet some of the project beneficiaries. For example, in Punjab, in Lahore, I had a chance to meet with Captain Mahmood, who is the Punjab Secretary of Agriculture. He's a very energetic leader where he's helping women farmers raise goats. And he's helping them get high-quality goats, the fodder, but also the veterinarian services. And I was so surprised when he was explaining to me that they have a motorcycle service with veterinarian kits in the back of the motorcycle, and that women farmers and other farmers can call a number, And the motorcycle will appear at their farm and help them with the veterinary needs for their livestock. These are very energetic and impressive leaders.
Speaking of impressive, how impressed are you by the diversity in Pakistan's culture in the different areas of Pakistan?
It's a large country and it's very diverse. Having been to Karachi, which is the business center of the country, very economic oriented, very fast paced, high profile business opportunities. Then you go up to the north in Gilgit, and it's a very different, much more rural and very focused on tourism. So I've seen some difference in the different parts of the country, and it's a beautiful country.
You also, as a part of the USAID, help preserve Pakistan's rich cultural heritage, including the indigenous people. How have you helped that in the past, and how are you doing that still?
Yeah. Well, this is something that our ambassador feels very strongly about, and we've created a program. It's called the Ambassadors Fund, and it's an open competition. People can submit proposals, and they've been doing it for years. And the program has some criteria. They're looking at, for example, like gender rights. They're looking at entrepreneurship, but they also focus on cultural protection and cultural resources here in Pakistan. And there's been some grants awarded up north as well as in Balochistan. I've had a chance to visit them, where, for instance, in the north, there was a group that wanted to protect and bring back indigenous music, different instruments and songs and dances. And so they got funding from the Ambassadors Fund. And we've been able to produce some videos on it and movies. And the same thing in Balochistan. And also in Sindh. And they recently had some performances at the embassy where these musicians from Balochistan and Sindh came and they performed. And if you talk about ethnic diversity, they were quite diverse. As you can imagine, the music from Gilgit had a certain kind of, it was like an environment with the wind and the music. And then in Sindh, the Sufism were very lively. Right? And so there's a very unique aspects of Pakistan culture that I enjoy.
All right. And of course, you also promote that culture in Pakistan so that those people who want to preserve their rich cultural heritage keep on preserving that and keep on also distributing and giving that love that they give towards other people of their society and other nations as well. Now, energy is one of the topics that our government is keenly focused on, has been focusing on since the last couple of years. You've seen the load shedding that we had a couple of years back is no longer the case at this moment as we speak. Energy is also one of the sectors that the USAID works along with Pakistan in. The Gomal Zam Dam project is just one of the different projects in the energy sector. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, energy is the area where the private sector will say, they need reliable, affordable electricity in order to operate their businesses and expand it. And I give credit to the government of Pakistan. USAID has been partnering with the government and other donors to increase the capacity of the system. USAID just passed a milestone now where we've been able to increase the capacity of the energy sector to 3,040 megawatts attributed to USAID assistance. Well, that's enough electricity to benefit 36 million Pakistanis. But much more needs to be done. If you look at the energy capacity per person, the energy use in Pakistan is quite low compared to other parts of the region. And so here you need to look at integrated planning, and we're supporting the government to think about what are the low-cost energy sources like solar and wind that they want to include. USAID funded a study in Sindh in Balochistan that identified the need for wind, the potential for the wind in generating wind power. But the private sector said, there's no way to get the wind power to the market. So USAID funded transmission lines that brought the wind power from Balochistan to the grid. And now we have 15 private sector projects operating windmills, producing 740 megawatts of power, and that's enough to benefit about 8 million Pakistanis.
All right. Women, children, the youth that are a majority in Pakistan are the backbone of this country. But all of these youth need to be healthy to work properly. For that, we need to have health facilities, and they need to have that access to health facilities. When we are in far-flung areas of Pakistan, it's not that easy to get, sometimes you have to go to a certain distance to get access to a basic health unit. It remains a challenge for some far-flung areas in Pakistan. What is the USAID contributing as far as that is concerned?
What we do is we look at the system and we say, how can we strengthen the healthcare system? And we work in 3 provinces, KP, Punjab, and Sindh. And here we work with the provincial officials and helping them with their planning and budgeting. And the objective is to help the provincial governments determine how can they allocate more of their own resources to fund these basic healthcare services. And we're seeing significant progress in governments in, like, for example, Sindh, allocating more resources for basic health. And while USAID does training, we provide support for community outreach and prevention, training the health workers, like the lady health workers. Our direct benefits, we estimate we've been able to impact 9.4 million women and children. But the real benefit is through the system. If you can strengthen the system so that these provincial health cares operating more effectively and there's more resources allocated, then that's have a more sustainable impact.
All right. Now, as far as the youth are concerned, you've mentioned it time and again that we are almost 60% in Pakistan. A lot of them don't get employment, some of them do, some of them become entrepreneurs. Is there a specific employment project that the USAID gets involved in as far as helping those youth of Pakistan is concerned?
Yes, we have 3 programs for what we refer to as workforce development that focus on vocational education. We have one in KP, one in Punjab, and one in Karachi. And we focus on such skills as welding, air conditioning, plumbing, electricity, repairing cars. There are many of these skills where workers can find employment here in Pakistan as well as in the Middle East and other countries. And for women, the focus is on sewing and embroidery.
All right. And how much of success rate have you seen as far as the youth employment facilities that you've provided is concerned? And which is the sector that has benefited the most in your point of view?
You know, it's interesting to see. It really depends upon the skill. For example, in welding has a very high employment rate. So do electricians and air conditioning. Some of the other ones have more like 70%, 80%. But things like high-tech welding, 100%. And many of them get positions in the Middle East, high-paying positions. So it really depends upon the vocational skill.
All right. When you go and visit the different centers where the USAID is working with the other development partners and donors, what kind of success stories have people come to you with? Do you remember any? Can you recount any? Can you tell us something?
Well, I was very impressed with when I visited a vocational training center in Karachi, and I was asking the students about what they plan to do. And many of them planned to start their own business, and these were the ones that were doing electrical and air conditioning. The people who were doing, because it's hot in Karachi, and they're basically saying they've learned how to do repair and installation of air conditioning, and they felt they could go out on their own and they could basically create their own business. And so when we have these vocational training centers, part of it is, as you mentioned, there's a post-training program that helps them with some small capital, some mentoring, and some entrepreneurship. So those that want to get a job and be employed, fine. Those that would like to create their own business, they also have some opportunities for support.
All right. As far as energy projects is concerned, Gomalzam Dam project is not the only project that you have. There's also the Jamshoro Power Station project, the Mangla Dam rehabilitation project that you've gotten involved with, the Aamir Bhasha Dam project, the Satpara development project, the Muzaffargarh Power Station project, the Guddu Power Station project. Once you start on a project that is, whether it's energy related or otherwise, how do you sustain that over the years? How do you oversee that the development is happening properly and as per the requirements?
Well, again, as I mentioned, the most important thing is the partnership. And we're very lucky to have such a leader in the Water and Power Development Authority here in Pakistan, General Hussain. He's been able to complete some really large, complex projects in difficult, remote areas. Very well done. He's quite a leader and very effective in getting these projects completed. Part of our design looks at sustainability. Does our partner have the resources to maintain it? And in particular, will these projects generate the revenue needed to maintain them?
All right. When it comes to different projects that you work upon, of course, all of it is for the development of the economy of Pakistan. And who doesn't want to see a country prosper than the country itself and also the developing partners that work along with it. Now, when it comes to different sectors that you work in to empower the economy of Pakistan, which is the sector that you are most proud of?
Well, I'm most proud of the work we're doing in the energy sector because I've seen the impact of electricity. For example, when the Golden Goal Dam was recently inaugurated by Prime Minister Abbasi a few weeks ago, they were able to bring electricity to remote areas that didn't have it, and in particular a school, where the children were learning by candlelight and now they have lights. Simple things like that really inspire me and motivate me. This is the kind of work that we can make a difference in people's lives that are very traumatic, very dramatic.
All right. Health also, we did discuss it a little before in the program, but health is also one of the primary factors that leads to many infant deaths, infant mortalities in Pakistan in far-flung areas. The government, the different provincial governments are working with agencies such as yours, with such as the United Nations as well. Now, as far as health is concerned, I was just going through some of the measures that you've undertaken, and that includes the Pakistan Initiative for Mothers and Newborns, the health infrastructure improvement, the field metabology and laboratory training programs, the demographic health survey project, the municipal services program, the maternal and child health program. What has been the success rate as far as health is concerned in different provinces, and which province has had the highest impact of result?
Yeah, I would say that the greatest impact has been both in Punjab and Sindh in terms of saving babies' lives. Using that low-cost produced ointment, the antibiotic ointment, on the umbilical cord to prevent the blood infection has been very impressive. If you save 144,000 babies every year, that's really important. Another area that you didn't mention, but it's very important for the health sector, is stunting. 45% of the children in Pakistan are stunted. That means they will not have the opportunity to fully develop physically and mentally. So USAID is partnering with the government of Pakistan, the private sector, to look at how can we fortify wheat, edible oil, and milk, but most importantly, how do we create a behavior change to encourage families to use a more appropriate diet, more nutritious diet during the first 1,000 days. And the 1,000 days refers to when a mother is pregnant for 9 months and the first 2 years of the baby's life. And I see opportunities there to really make a difference, and this is across the country.
All right. Now, amongst the different sectors that you work upon, one of the sectors that Pakistan holds very true, very near to its heart, and has been following is democracy. Democracy, since the last couple of years, has been following a correct path. As we say, will be getting elections, inshallah, this year as well, where a third democratic government will come into power. Almost 10 years past this democratic process. How does the USAID help governments such as those in Pakistan with sustaining its democratic values, democracy, and sustaining it?
Well, for anything to do with like the elections, we work through the donor fund. The United Nations operates a donor fund for the elections. So we just contribute to the United Nations fund. And so they end up doing the training of election workers, and they support on the elections. One of the areas that we did support was helping women get national identification cards.
All right.
We helped 400,000 women get national identification cards, which allows them to access government services as well as to vote.
All right. Now, as far as the whole process of the USAID working in countries such as Pakistan or other countries around the world is seen, you've had an experience in working in quite a lot of difficult areas as well. What has been your most challenging experience as far as your work is considered?
Here in Pakistan?
Around the world.
Oh, I would say it was most difficult in Afghanistan.
All right.
Just because of personal security. I had bombs, and there are many incidents that were very dramatic in terms of suicide bombs.
And what has been your most successful project as far as different countries around the world is concerned? Something that you can say, I'm very proud of.
I was very proud of the work I did in the Philippines, helping farmers living in remote islands have solar-powered battery charging. So the farmers, they would get a battery and it would be charged. And they'd use it for a while, and if they want, and they'd have lights. And if they wanted to get the battery, they'd have to pay 2 pesos to get a new battery. So there's sustainability built in. But what I found exciting was that these farmers and fishermen never had access to a light. So they used candle lights or kerosene. So now they would have batteries that they use for their lights so the children could study. Then they also use the batteries for karaoke machines. You know, Filipinos love to sing.
Yes.
They also use the batteries to run fans to dry different products so they could sell to market. So I was so impressed at this relatively small intervention. It was solar panels used to charge batteries, and the batteries and lights were distributed to different members of that community, and how the communities use this very simple electricity for different benefits. And I see the same thing here in Pakistan, where you're extending electricity to communities that never had it before, and you just wait and see what they do with it. The ingenuity and creativity of these individuals will be fabulous.
When you go and when you see these success stories of different people, whether it be women or young people or men who have achieved something due to the projects that you have initiated along with the provincial governments or the federal government of Pakistan or different donors in Pakistan, how does it make you feel as heading an institution that has done so much for different countries around the world?
We're both proud and humble. I mean, I'm humble of the fact that we have so much we take for granted, and that many other people don't have the same advantages that we have. And so the small things that we can do to improve the lives of other people, it's very humbling.
All right. It's always Mr. Bisson, the small efforts that reap benefits in the long run. The USAID has been working in Pakistan since 1961. Now, that is a very long span of time. I mean, we're now in 2018, almost in the third month of 2018. How satisfied, I mean, I know that you've just been associated with the USAID since 30 years, but how much satisfied are you by the work that the USAID has been doing in countries such as Pakistan?
Well, I'm very proud of the work that we've done in it, but I look at it as an evolving partnership. When the U.S. and Pakistan were partners in 1947, so 70 years the U.S. and Pakistan were partnerships. USAID came later, but our assistance when we first started was we provided bulk commodities, fertilizers, oil and gas, wheat, equipment, and we built some large infrastructure. Now it's evolved where the government of Pakistan is leading its development agenda. And they look to USAID to provide state-of-the-art, high-quality technical advisory services. So we're looked at as an advisor to help the government of Pakistan carry out its agenda.
All right. And speaking of helping Pakistan carry out its agenda, what does the future hold for the relationship between the USAID and Pakistan? What can we look forward to as far as the different development projects that the USAID will be initiating in the coming months and years is concerned? Can you give us some tidbits, some highlights?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to be supporting the government's efforts to promote what we call private sector-led economic growth. So we're going to be looking at the perspective from the private sector. What do they look for them to invest and create jobs? And I'll give you 3 areas that we're going to be focusing on. Helping the government put in place what we refer to as international standards for customs and trade. And that includes what we call a national single window, which is a one-stop shop for a business to come and get their licenses and permits for either import or export. And the second part is an electronic payment system, so that when the business gets the license or permit, they can pay for it, and normally it would take 3 days or more. Using the electronic payment system we're putting in place, they can do it in 3 hours or less, and they can do it from anywhere in the world.
All right.
And the third part is helping the agribusiness sector on what we refer to as warehouse receipt financing. And this means we have third parties, independent third parties come in, they document the volume and value of commodities in a warehouse, they certify that, and then the company can take that certification to the bank and get financing for their operations. So this is very important for the agribusiness sector because they often have commodities, agricultural commodities, and if they can get financing before they sell it, it helps them with their operations.
All right. Mr. Bisson, during all those years of working in Pakistan, and now it's very recent, but in other countries as well, has there been a time where you felt your hands were tied, you could have done more, but that you couldn't due to one reason or the other?
Here in Pakistan?
Or anywhere else in the world?
Well, in Afghanistan, there were many constraints on security. There were things that we wanted to do that we could not do because the country was too dangerous to work in. It was very difficult to get out and about. And so we were using different approaches that we call third-party monitoring. And for example, I was heading up an infrastructure office where we were constructing roads, power lines, schools and health clinics. And we needed to have engineers out there supervising it, monitoring it. And so I had to come up with creative ways where I would put in place independent monitoring to go out and measure and monitor this and help us improve implementation. That was one where I felt if my own engineers could have gotten out, we would have done a better job. So it was very, very challenging, but we had to come up with creative ways to implement these programs.
When it comes to Pakistan, Mr. Bisson, when an individual or a company or an organization comes to you for some kind of development work or some need of help which the USAID can provide, how long does it take for your organization to respond, and what is the process?
We are trying to be faster. One of my goals as mission director is to put in place what I refer to is broad, flexible, and responsive mechanisms. So if an opportunity arises, we can respond within a few months as opposed to a few years.
All right.
As a large development organization, USAID, when we design our programs, I'll be very candid, it takes us a long time to actually get the design, because we do a lot of analysis, to get it approved, to put in place a mechanism. They take time. So what I want to do is do that up front, all the design work and the procurement, but the actual mechanism we put in place will be broad, flexible, and responsive, and give us the ability to be fast.
What about those people, Mr. Bisson, for example, who don't know very well to read or write? There's a lot of paperwork involved in any project that the USAID or any other organization gets involved with. How do you help those people or those organizations with that? Do you have members of your organization that go and help those people out with the paperwork and help them understand how to fill up the forms, etc.?
Well, as I mentioned, there is a number of programs we have which are open to the public to submit, but you do have to have a certain level of reading in terms of being able to read Urdu or English to understand what the proposals are. When we come down to specific areas, for example, if we're going to be working in helping communities along the border with Afghanistan, for instance, FATA and KP, we're going to be helping communities there with livestock, helping grow livestock. So there, we will have technicians who speak the local language in the field working with communities. So we would not expect those individuals to go to the USAID or US government website and determine how to submit a proposal. Whereas there are people in Peshawar, for example, who might be able to speak English well enough, or Urdu, and then be able to understand, oh, there's an opportunity here. How can I get the submit a proposal?
All right. There's also one thing called awareness, Mr. Bisson. Any organization that works in any sector needs to make the communities aware that it is there for them to be able to get help if and when they want to. How does the USAID reach the people of Pakistan? What are the different forms? I mean, I know there's social media, there are newspapers, there's television. What are the other forms?
We focus heavily on radio because that's what many people in the rural areas will be listening to, radio, and it'll be in the local languages. And so, for example, we will have programs on a weekly basis that talk about different topics. It could be the healthcare, for example, this low-cost antibiotic ointment to save babies' lives. It could be in the agricultural sector where we're talking about our efforts to increase dairy production. And by the way, we have a really interesting success story. If you're familiar with Ben & Jerry's ice cream, the black and white cow you see on the Ben & Jerry's carton, that's a Holstein cow. And we brought Holstein cows here to Pakistan. And we have, in Punjab, we were able to help the farmers increase their milk production by 250%. So again, we might have in this radio program, here's a program for livestock, how can you increase your productivity for your livestock We could have programs that talk about education. How do you access reading skills for first graders and second graders?
All right. What about community outreach in the different villages? Do you send agents from your organization to help them get aware of the different avenues that the USAID is working in so that they could get benefit from it?
Yeah, and that would be built into the design of each program. So for example, if you've got a health program, when we have these basic healthcare workers, like the lady workers in Sindh, part of that would be community outreach for healthcare services and prevention.
All right. As far as Pakistan is concerned, the different sectors, I mean, we've talked quite in detail about the different sectors that we've worked together, the USAID and the government of Pakistan, whether it be energy, economic growth, agriculture, resilience, education, health, gender equality, female empowerment. I mean, the list goes on and on. What is the sector that you're most proud of, apart from energy? I know you're very happy with the energy sector.
Again, I have to say, it goes back to my days as a Peace Corps volunteer, where I was growing hybrid mango trees. And I was very honored to go to a mango gala last year in Pakistan, where I got to celebrate Pakistan's mango production. And I used to think that the Philippines produced the best mangoes. Now I have to admit that Pakistan has the most delicious mangoes. And we've helped the producers of mangoes increase their exports in many ways. And one of which is we help the producers understand what are the requirements to be an exporter of mangoes. And then how do you grade your mangoes? And we help the producers use automated graders. And I didn't realize at the time, but the automated graders dramatically increase the price that the producers get. So when the producer has a box, if all the mangoes are the same price, they get a higher price, same size. If all the mangoes are the same size, they get a higher price for that box of mangoes. And then we developed a carton that allows more airflow, which allows the mangoes to have a greater shelf life, and they can be shipped farther. So I feel like Pakistan produces the most delicious mango in the world, and we're helping Pakistan tell its story of, hey, we've got the best mango.
All right. And I think mangoes, Mr. Bisson, are not the only products that it does make. And I think with the help of organizations such as the USAID, Pakistan can develop and can prosper in different sectors because we have the manpower, we have the knowledge. All we need is that little push through development partners such as yourself and the organization that you belong to, Mr. Bisson. And I think Pakistan can go a long way, and it has come a very long way, as you have seen in different sectors. Energy, for one, we are almost a load-shedding free country as we speak. And inshallah, in the days and months and years to come, this relationship that the USAID and Pakistan has developed since 1961 will prosper, will develop, and will grow even more. And we hope to see more of genuine and ingenuity coming from your side as far as the projects are concerned, and more success stories coming in the form of different men, women, and children from urban and rural areas of Pakistan coming and say, we did it. As your motto also says, together we care.
Together we can.
And so together we can, together we care. Ladies and gentlemen, we were in conversation with the mission director of the USAID in Pakistan, Mr. Jerry Bisson. As Mr. Bisson and myself discussed during the whole course of the show, the whole different sectors that the organization has been working in since it started its operations in Pakistan in 1961, and the success stories, we can always hope and pray that in the days and the years to come, those success stories will strengthen that relationship between the two countries, because after all, both countries have had a relationship since Pakistan became independent in 1947. We wish them all the best, and as the motto says, together we care. Omer Khalid bids you farewell from this episode of Diplomatic Enclave. We'll be back inshallah next week, same time, same channel. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz. And Mr. Bisson, thank you so very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.